You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. It's not about the destination. It's about going someplace you never thought possible. Go to imaginenext.ingrammicro.com to find out more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Keri Roberts, and my guests today are Frank LoTempio, a Senior Manager of Credit Development at Ingram Micro, and Kathy Kagay, the Director of Credit Development at Ingram Micro as well. Welcome, Kathy and Frank. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Keri. Thanks for having us.
Hey, Keri. It's our pleasure. We're looking forward to it.
So many partners over the past few months have, of course, said their cash flow has been interrupted during this challenging business environment. And Ingram suggests doing things such as cash flow planning, managing your soft costs, optimizing your IT landscape, and looking at financing to get yourself paid faster. Can you give us a brief understanding of each of these?
Yeah, Keri, I'll kick it off. With a lot closer focus on cash flow, there has been a lot of requests for extended terms, and we're encouraging that match because, when their end user is going to be paid, it will more closely match up to when the invoice from Ingram will be paid and those due dates. So in anticipating that need across the board, we provided our TrustX customers and our SMB Alliance partners a permanent 15-day extension on their payment terms. Also, what we did was we negotiated with several of our vendor partners to extend us terms so that we could in turn pass those extended terms along to our partners. These proactive strategies really paid off for our customers and able to match up their cash flow. On the other point that you brought up, as far as the soft cost management and optimization of IT, many of our end users are moving more of their applications to the cloud on a subscription and consumption basis. Our partners are really enjoying those benefits because of the reoccurring revenue model in the subscription model. This really helped keep the cash machine flowing during the initial months of COVID shutdown and when other projects were being put on hold. Frank, do you have any other thoughts around that?
Yeah, sure. That was a great summary, Kathy. One of the other things that we did during COVID was around cash flow challenges and extended terms. And when you start extending terms, the credit line becomes a little bit of an issue because some of the credit capacity goes away. So what we did is we didn't have any of the customers formally apply for increased credit facilities to help the cash flow and the extended terms. What we did is we just ran some data and essentially our customers that were in good standing got incremental credit, and it amounted to almost $100 million of liquidity we put in the channel, and it touched over around 1,800 resellers. And what benefit was that is during like the first 6 to 8 weeks during COVID, the incremental line came in, was super handy because the work from home initiatives needed to be solved. So end users were looking for monitors, laptops, security software, webcams, video conferencing tools to help that work from home initiative. And business really ramped up during that first few weeks after COVID. So that incremental credit capacity really came in handy, and we saw some success there. So that was pretty neat to see that was a success. Kathy, I know, like for an example here, you've been knee deep in working with the customer right now and solving some of the cash flow constraints and cash flow gaps that we had. Just wondering if you wanted to maybe share a little bit of an example to kind of give a picture of some of the things that we're doing to help our partners in times of their cash flow crunch.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Frank. So one of the it's becoming more and more popular within our partner community is working with our partners, and especially those that have a really good book of business in the managed service financing or managed service contracts where they have developed decent sized portfolios of their own managed services. We don't go in and we kind of go in, we look at the partners, we look at their contracts, and we are able to accelerate cash flow back into those companies by providing financing based on those that monthly recurring revenue, where we fund the partner up front for the value of a contract or a portion of the contract. This helps put the cash flow back into the customer because they had to do some investment on each of these contracts that they have in place with their partners. It could be, hardware costs up front. They might have had to bring on additional headcount in order to service these contracts. So we can look on an individual basis, or we actually look at a portfolio of these managed services, provide this upfront funding back to the partner that they can then use either for organic growth or possibly even for targeted acquisition growth. We can pre-fund on a single contract or the portfolio, like I said, because a lot of times if you look at a single contract, there might be some limitations. And we actually have several partners that will package up their contracts on a quarterly or an annual basis and present them back to us. And then we do a funding against that. And then again, to continue to help recover any of that gap in cash flow from the additional investment to the actual monthly payment. It's really a great alternative to their traditional banking.
Well, we talk about on the show all the time, how Ingram is always looking for ways to help its partners. You're doing that. And another piece I want to go into a little bit more in depth is the financing component. And Ingram has some great data here I want to share. Partners who use the Ingram Micro channel financing outperform their peers on an average of 25%, and customers using Direct Express grew 48% in Q2 of 2020 versus Q2 of 2019. And then leasing partners grew sales by 13%. Can you explain why you think this is working so well here?
Sure, Keri, thanks. This is Frank. Specifically around Direct Express, we've seen that really take off over the last 24 months. It's a really great solution because it solves the needs for credit capacity for small customers and some of our more matured large customers. The solution is simple as the credit decisions based on the end user's financial condition and viability. So the way it works is the end user will pay Ingram Micro directly, and then we funnel the profit proceeds to our reseller once we're paid. So it's a pretty simple transaction, but the beauty of it is if you have a big part of Ingram's community, and people forget about our SMB community. It's a very important part of our business, not just the big guys. So a small, medium-sized business needs to find a way to close larger transactions from time to time, and they don't necessarily have the financial credit to do that. So we've created this program here that allows our resellers to go bid on large business and know they have a way to finance it before the transaction occurs versus being actually afraid. We've heard our partners say, I've come across this large deal and I just know I don't have the credit capacity to do that, so I walk away. And we want our partners to know that's not the case. Always reach out to somebody, your credit analyst at Ingram or your sales rep or someone in VendorMark. We will help you find a way to finance that opportunity. So it really helps small customers finance very large transactions, and we've seen some success over that. And that goes into those numbers that you referenced. We've also seen large partners come to us and say, hey, you know what? I have this partner. They're a little bit difficult to manage for us. So we want to separate that business from the other business. It takes a lot of our time collecting on that account. So we have a version called Direct Express Complete, which is a subset of Direct Express, where we actually will bill and collect on behalf of our customer. And it's all white labeled. We're calling as the customer. And what it does is we do that. They outsource that functionality of collections to Ingram. And what it really does is allow the partner to do what they do, which is to sell and grow their business rather than focus on some of these customers that may have a pain point. So we've seen success with small customers and large customers. And the one point I did forget was it's supplemental to our resellers' credit facility. So if they have X credit line, say it's $1 million net 30-day terms, and they get this Bluebird deal, we look at that separately. It's put on a separate account that $1 million is still there for them to transact their run rate business. We don't want to put a squeeze on the business if they have a large transaction. So it's supplemental to their credit facility where their day-to-day goes uninterrupted. So it's been a very successful program for us.
You know, on a similar note, annuity business is also quite large. And in fact, it's 30% of all business requests that many vendors are offering a shift to this service model. Why are vendors pushing for this, and what does this mean?
Sure. This is an interesting topic. Kathy and I and the leadership team spent hours and hours trying to figure out this shift of the channel and the way we do business. And a lot of it is the vendors and the customers pushing for this, but it's also the end users pushing for this solution. So there's benefits all the way around the table where everyone benefits in the food chain. So end users, they want to consume product differently today. So you look at maybe 5 to 6 years ago and a customer wanted to buy a router and it cost $200,000. And then a couple of years later, they refresh it because it's outdated. That's done. It's a really expensive way to do business. So a lot of our end users want to consume the product differently and pay monthly over a few years, like almost like a rental program or a lease. So it's a lower upfront cost. And then as the technology changes and it needs to be upgraded, they can easily transition into the latest and greatest technology. So the end users, are kind of have been leading that change in the way they want to consume product. What we're seeing, so then is the vendor community and the resellers in Ingram have had to come up with ways to solve that. And the way we've solved that is we've created some financial programs as well to solve for this annuity business. But I digressed a little bit, but getting back to your question of what does this all mean? Before, a couple of years ago, a vendor and customer would book a product sale and be done with it. There's no stickiness to it. So, they book a Bluebird deal for $5 million, then next year it goes away, the revenues go down. They may have had to hire some headcount to service that deal, and then it goes away. And now you have increased cost without the revenue coming in. So it's really caused a problem. I always refer to it as like deal chasing. So every every month, the reseller would have to chase deals just to keep up and keep their financials trending in the right way. Fast forward to today, that's not the case. So, that the old deal could be lost easily by someone coming in and undercutting price when it needed to be refreshed. So it could really turn into just a one-time transaction. So when we look at these annuity deals, this service-led model, or what we call monthly recurring revenue model, there are some very good benefits. And we're really pushing our analyst team, Kathy's and I's, we're really consultants to the reseller. We really want to be viewed as a trusted consultant or an extension of their team. And we consult with them, and we're trying to position how important and why it's so important to start shifting into a monthly recurring revenue model, because it really gets away from that deal chasing. It creates stickiness because the contracts usually last 3 to 5 years. So you're really our resellers then and the vendor solution as well is embedded in the end user's business. It makes it really difficult for somebody to come in and just steal that business. So it really makes that business sticky to our customer, and they stay their end users stay with them for long periods of time versus the old world. The second thing is there's more margin in a recurring model with services attached to it. We've also seen that when it comes time for a business to maybe wind down because the owner wants to retire or he's built up his business and he wants to sell, a monthly recurring revenue business model attracts larger dollars at the sale because there is that stickiness. A product deal can go away. So when potential investors are looking at purchasing an entity, the EBITDA multiples that you could sell for are much higher with an MRR business model. So it really has customers are really transitioning to that because they're trying to create the most value in their business. And trying to think here. I forgot about one of the biggest reasons is that it's the most predictable way for an owner or a CFO to manage their business. I mean, how nice is it when you walk in the morning and you could say, you know what, I have $300,000 of income every day I walk in because I have this recurring model, versus the stress and need to replace a deal that you booked last year for that was one time. So it's really helpful. Kathy actually alluded to it earlier with the advent of the COVID crisis, in the fact that businesses that had a monthly recurring model sustained much better than ones that didn't, because they had that money coming in the door during those challenging economic environment.
Do you have any suggestions for companies that don't have this yet? Maybe they're not offering services, they're offering products. Somebody's purchasing a product that will last them for a year or a few years. What suggestions do you have for them to kind of create this reoccurring membership model?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we call it One Ingram, and we have many tranches within Ingram Micro to help a partner transition to this model. So it's really getting in contact with your point of contact, whether it's your account executive or your credit development manager. And we have partnered with third-party folks that provide educational seminars on what it takes to transition into a monthly recurring model. We have our market development teams that specialize in each of the technologies that our reseller may focus in, and we can help them get trainings, their vendor certifications, and we can walk through all the financing that we have available that aligns with the shift to that business model. So we have a lot of resources at Ingram to help drive that. So we don't want anyone to feel nervous or think it's too complex to do so. It takes a long time to shift from a product model to a monthly recurring model, but the Ingram team has all the resources that can help our partners do that.
Can you provide, maybe off the top of your head, or maybe a case study of an example of how somebody transitioned? Because I think for people that are feeling like, well, I sell a product, I'm really confused. Okay, yes, I want the help from Ingram, but I don't even know what that would look like. Can you just maybe paint the picture of like an example of what it might look like?
Yeah. So one, it starts with the owner recognizing the need. So some folks think that, you know what, I've done the product business so well over the years, I don't need to do this. But studies have shown that, whether it's 3 to 5 years out, that they may not be in business anymore if they don't transition. And that's some of the information that our third party that we've partnered with has stated, not as a scare tactic, but it's really to open the eyes of these folks. And what we do is the ones that are interested, the process starts with going through, some of the training seminars. And it's really a shift of everything from, how your business is capitalized. There's a whole shift of the sales mentality. So there's a different selling mentality where the whole sales team needs to be trained. There's also aligning your costs to a slower revenue base. So like for the example, I usually give an example to say, in yesterday's world, you sell a $100,000 product and your end user pays you in 30 days and you collect all your money in 30 days. And then your profit's there to do whatever you want, whether it's to invest back in your business, pay out a bonus, whatever have you have the gross profits from that transaction in 30 days. When we're going to this annuity business model, the look and feel of a transaction is much different. So it used to be, or now it will be, it's a $100,000 deal, but it's a 3-year deal and you're paid annually on the anniversary of the invoice date. So you would, instead of collecting the profit from $100,000 in 30 days, you're now collecting it 1/36 every month or once a year over 3 years. So there's a cash flow gap that you have. And that's where some of the financing comes in, that Ingram can help finance that gap for you, because you still need to, in both instances, whether it was you collect all your money up front or in the course of a 3-year period example, you still have to pay your vendors on time. And when that happens, there's that cash flow gap. So the whole model is different. So it really starts with the training and development of putting forth what the plan is, how long it's going to take to do that. It takes a long time to, transition from a product to a services-led model. And if you do it too fast, you could see that one transaction, you have that gap. If you do multiple transactions and you keep adding that gap up over time, it can really cause a crunch on your business and make you fail.
Well, I think it's important too that you're also saying it's not necessarily about offering new products or services. It's really about changing your mindset and your model with how you're doing the cash flow as a whole.
That is correct. Absolutely.
So, we're talking about, obviously, this is a new transition for many with everything going on. But when you think about technology as a whole, where do you see it going within the next year? And Kathy, I'll have you start with your answer to this question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the use of technology has been evolving, my goodness, like last 10 years, really. There's been the thought of cloud before. It was really kind of called something else at the time. But, we've gone from on-premise to cloud. And, the newer as a service model, I think really is going to be where technology is leading into the future. When you think about before, you'd go out and you buy your cell phone. Well, who buys a cell phone anymore? Now it's a monthly payment that they're doing. And so us as consumers has bled into the business world really, and kind of gotten us used to this, doing it on a monthly basis. So I think consumption is going to continue to be on the consumption basis. And it really does map in with what Frank was just talking about, the whole monthly reoccurring revenue. Again, you lease cars, you drive them, you make a payment, and then you turn it back in, you get a new car, you make payments, and then you continue on that cycle, just like with cell phones. So really kind of like the programs in our financing distribution programs are going to become even more key in the future, where we're able to support these longer term annuities. As Frank discussed before, risk mitigation on some of these annuities as well. We have our financing programs that will help mitigate the risk for our partners, and then kind of help them again with the transition into the new consumption-based or utility type billing. That also kind of poses the question on, the risk in the consumption billing, and some of our tools are helping us to assess the risk, along the way, look at consumption to make sure that it's not getting like too far out of, the comfort zone as far as the credit extension. But, as we look forward in distribution, technology distribution, definitely an increase in the usage of channel financing to support the interrupted cash flows through the transition models, and supporting all of the different technology selling motions. Our distribution's role is going to be even more so on the financing side and how to provide that. And Ingram really is the financial innovator in technology distribution.
Frank, any thoughts that couple with Kathy has to say here, or what are your thoughts on where technology is going within this next year?
I'd have to agree. We're super aligned. The service-led recurring monthly model and annuity is definitely where we're going. I guess the only thing I'd add in is, when we're working with our partners to finance their business, we've come up with our solutions, and some of them have been at the ideas of our partners. What we're very open to is, if those don't work, help us develop something that does, that we haven't thought of. So that's where the innovation comes in that Kathy talks about. It's not, our way or the highway. We really want to make programs that are impactful in the channel. And a lot of the time it comes from the feedback from our partners. So for the listeners out there that may feel that some of the stuff that we've described today isn't going to work for them, well, work with us and tell us what you need, and we'll see what we could put together for it.
Wonderful. As always, Ingram is providing so much care and service for its partners. If people want to learn more about what we talked about today, Frank, you had mentioned if people are like, okay, I want to switch to this model, I don't know how, where is the best place to connect with either of you or online to learn more?
Yeah, so to talk about our programs, and hopefully we can post this link, it would be at playbooks.ingrammicro.com/financial-flipbook.html. And then anytime they can reach out, they can contact Frank or myself at our email addresses that we can also hopefully post. And anytime, with your credit development manager, they can definitely facilitate conversations and get you more involved in some of our programs if some of these sound of interest to you.
Perfect. And we will link all of that information in the show notes. So if you're listening, you can always go back and click on the links that are there as well. Thank you both so much, Frank and Kathy, for being here and for breaking down how all of this works. We appreciate it. And we look forward to having you on again soon, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks so much, Keri.
Thanks, Keri.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram TechSol with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Keri Roberts. This episode was sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production with Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform.